because I've been true since I was 16 years old, and I became, well, through knowledge itself, I've been true since 16 years old. But then I want to say, I think in my 30s, I made it legal, like changed it on.
In the courts and everything.
Correct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But hey, man, thank you for coming through and hanging out with me, True. For real.
Yeah, yo,
for real,
listen,
for real.
Bro, it's an honor and a supreme pleasure. Like, listen, if you don't know, Spark.N.Stride definitely knows how to treat their guests. He's not paying me to say that. I'm telling you, like, it's been an amazing experience, my brother. So thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. Like, so I want to tell you how I got in touch with you. Mm-hmm. So it was through Stack Dollars, if I'm not mistaken.
Stack
right?
Federal Dollar. Yo, shout out to my man, Stacks.
Yo, Stacks, good looking out, Stacks. Appreciate it. It's funny, man, how in this space that we're in, podcasting, whether you're using social media to get your brand out or your message out, it's interesting how I don't know Stacks, bro. I don't know that guy. I've never met him. But that dude is a supporter of Spark.N.Stride. Like, and it's just crazy, man, because like my inner circle, I don't even think is like on it like that. You know what I mean? With that level of support. In any case, good looking out, Stacks. I appreciate it. Look forward to meeting you someday. And in the meantime, you know, I'm here with True, and it's good, man. It's good. It's good stuff. So
yeah, and it's amazing how like through what I call divine synchronicity, not to get all weird or mystical or nothing like that, but organically that happened, right? And it came from pure love intention, because me being a good brother to him, and also the fact that he respects and appreciates the work that I do, he saw the work that you're doing and was like, yo, I gotta, you know, combine these two men so that they can work collectively.
Right.
So now you got two people who don't know each other now meeting. And I truly believe, I know I said this over the phone, but now I'm going to say it live on air so that it's documented, bro, that this is just the beginning of many more powerful things that we're going to do together.
Oh, man. Brother, I couldn't agree with you more, brother. I could not agree with you more. I think also, man, like, so I've been like in a weird space over the last like few months. And the space constitutes a few things. So I left the military after 24 years, and then I started Spark.N.Stride at the tail end, right? It's something when someone is like, call it reinventing yourself or whatever it is, right? The folks in your immediate circle, supervision, or the folks that you work closely with, they see you in one way, but you know for yourself, man, there's so many facets to like what I'm able to do. I'm creative. I'm all these things. I'm a military member. I'm decorated military service member. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a family man. Like, it's all these things. And people kind of like, but in their own right, put you in this box. Let's just call it that. But then when you start like expressing yourself, or you start coming out of the box that they've put you in, you didn't put yourself there. They put you there. And I don't even think it's like a purposeful thing. I think they can't even absorb it, man. They're like, who is this guy?
Right.
I've known this guy for 8 years. I've never seen this part of this guy. Like, you know, you get what I'm going with that, man? So going back to like, what I'm getting at is like being in this space, like I'm trying to get used to this new Mach, if you want to call it that, right? This new part of myself where like I'm being to express my creativity, whether it be through podcasting, whether it be through my book that's coming out, whether it be through all these different avenues. I think folks that don't know, or they're not getting a peek behind the curtain. You've gotten a peek behind the curtain today. So you could validate, right? You'd be like, no. Like, let me tell you what that's about. You know, it's just interesting because I feel like for the most part, a lot of my, I wouldn't say relationships, I would say connections, the connections that I had to some folks, for the most part, I'm not in contact with these folks anymore. And it's sad, right? Because we share this like camaraderie, this this passion for service, and in the Air Force, like service before self is one of the core values, right? And now it's changed. It's no longer that. It's now this. And this is what it is. Right?
Yeah, I totally relate to what you're saying on every level.
Yeah.
You know, because I've experienced similar things where people seen me in a certain light, and I want to be honest and say that I wasn't always this positive person. And still to this day, I'm not always a positive person, right? That's my intention, and that's what I strive to manifest every day in my dealings. And whenever I get off track, I do something about it within myself, in my mind, my heart, and whatnot. But I think ultimately, whatever is going on with people, I think that it's a sign of their lack of growth. Because if they grew, then they can actually detect the frequency, energy, and vibrations that you're coming with. And that's no disrespect to any of your loved ones or any of my loved ones, because I believe that people should be happy, wherever they are. If you're happy, then you're good. I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied with my life, so I did something about it, and I've been working on myself, and I'm still. This is a lifelong journey, and I always say this to people: like, I love my family, like my blood family, you know. But for me, my real family are those who have the same goals, the same energy vibration. You'll hear me say those words multiple times. You know, we're on the same path. For me, that's my family also, because I have family members that we actually are not on the same path. We don't share the same values and principles. So that's my family because we share the same DNA, and I respect that and honor that. But for me, I feel more connected to those that I vibe with. And I consider them, if anything, again, no disrespect to anyone, more family than anybody else. And you mentioned like even people you grew up with. I find that a lot of my support actually comes from people that I didn't grow up with. You know, there are people that like been there since day one. Like you mentioned Stacks earlier. He knew me since I was a drug dealer, since I was stealing cars. He's been there since day one. My man D1 from 10th and 23rd, and a lot of my other brothers from 10th Ave and 23rd, they all support me. But it's interesting, a lot of people that I thought would support me. And when I say support, I ain't trying to beg nobody to, you get what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
But it's just, I did have, I guess for lack of a better word, expectation that some people that I did grow up with and been there and know what I've been through and, you know, were there with me would support more or be invested in the message and mission and purpose more. And I find that they're not. And in my early stages of creating, I did feel some type of way about that. I'll keep it real. Especially if, like, for example, I had merch, hoodies, right? And it said peace. But it was an acronym. It said positive energy activates constant elevation. Something that I learned as my foundation, a 5%er. And so I'm like, all right, if you wear hoodies with a positive statement, I would think that it's a no-brainer that you would invest in your brother who has a dope quality hoodie with a positive statement. So I'm not even trying to say like people, like if you don't wear hoodies, I get it. If you don't read books, I get it. No problem. So that hurt me, you know, when those type of people didn't invest. I'd rather use the word invest and support, invest, but I've accepted that. You know what? Like you said, I'm just true from the block. You know what I mean? So it's like whatever. It could be this too. Might be some like insecurities that we are, how do I say, revealing in them. You get what I'm saying? Because maybe they're not pursuing their passion and purpose. I don't know, but it's something that I just accepted about this lifestyle, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, and I just appreciate the people who are there.
It's interesting though, right?
It is.
Like if you really take the time to kind of like just, and that's the other thing, taking the time. I'm going to share something with you. So you and I were going back and forth, we're texting, right? I'm like, hey, send me the link for the book. You send me the link, right? So I was at an appointment, and what it forced me to do, the book, it forced me to sit down and like stop what I was doing. And what I'm getting at is that it wasn't audio. It was not an audible version
not yet
of the book, right? So, and I want to plug you with the person that is helping me do my audio from my Audible. So we'll do that offline. So what I'm getting at is that like typically I'm multitasking, which is probably, I don't know how well or efficient I am at it, but that's just the way I kind of do my thing, right? So yesterday in particular, it forced me, no, dude, you have to sit down. I have no ear pods or anything, and you have to read. So I have the book on my phone and I'm reading, right? And I'm just like thinking to myself, man, this person, True, this is the kind of person that I want to collaborate with. This is the kind of person I want to like brainstorm with. And not just him, people like him, right? Because here's my thing, dude. So my entire thing with Spark.N.Stride, my mission, right? My mission is to just motivate someone else in whatever passion they have. It's just some motivation, right? Like, hey man, I don't have a video background. I don't have an editing background, but I taught myself. I learned. And I kind of like pieced this together. Look at what I created, right? You can do the same thing. So what I'm getting at, as we're talking about the folks' support or non-support or lack of support for whatever the case may be, I always think to myself, the people in my life, my wife, my family, her family, dude, there is some amazing people that I'm directly connected to. If we would all just come together, I could guarantee you, dude, Spark.N.Stride would be a known podcast. Let's just say that, right? I just think that collectively, man, everyone has all these different skills. And if we just all kind of like bring them together, because I can't do everything. Instinctively, what I wanted to do is I wanted to put out one podcast a week was my goal. But then I started like really breaking it down, and I was like, oh man, like that's like 52 weeks, that's 52 people. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be really tough for me to kind of like pull off on my own. But if I had someone by my side that's like, reaching out to other folks on Instagram, because that's pretty much how I do this thing, right? Like someone tells me about someone, and then I go and I reach out to them on Instagram, and ultimately I'm doing the talent acquisition part of it and the social media part of it, but I love it. And like you and I discussed earlier today, I wish I could do this every day. Like my goal right now is to get myself to a point where I can do this every day. And I want to work with like the next generation of creator or influencer. There's a young girl or a young guy somewhere who may see this on YouTube or whatever the case and is trying to figure out how do they do it, but maybe they don't have the budget or the space or maybe the spark, right? So they see what we're doing, what we're talking about. You're a family man, I'm a family man. It's a little different for us, right? Like this is like a young man's game for the most part, But I know I'm all over the place, True, but just please stick with me, bro.
I'm with you because I communicate the same way. Yeah.
So, okay. So
we have a lot in common.
Dude, so like, and we do, right? So I'm a huge hip hop head, right?
Yeah, me too.
Grew up in Brooklyn, grew up in the inner city. That was salsa and merengue was the first thing I was introduced to because that's my family's generation. Mm-hmm. But I'm an 80s baby. Mm-hmm. My mom was on heroin. We're homeless. We're in and out of shelters. So hip hop has been the soundtrack to my life. I joined the military, and the military exposes me to all these other different kinds of people who have the same stories, but just from a different place. So I'm wearing this shirt. I'm wearing this California shirt for my people on the West Coast.
I used to live in Cali too. That's funny.
I was born in Cali. I was born in California, but I was raised in Brooklyn. But what I'm getting at is that hip hop, right, has played an intricate role in my life, right? So I can't rap. I tried. I'm not good. I can't do it. I don't know how to make beats. I love music. I don't know how to do it. I was trying to figure out how can I get myself into the culture, right? How do I do that? So then I thought to myself, well, take your experiences, because you have tons of experience, right? Like you were in the military for 24 years, you traveled all around the world, you've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, you've seen what most people do not get a chance to see. So everything you're seeing right now, brother, at 46 years old is just a collection of experience, ups and downs, letdowns, and prosperity, and the whole thing. You're like, this is what you're seeing.
Yeah. You said so much stuff, man. And I first I want to say that the feeling is mutual in terms of want to collectively work with you. And it reminds me of, have you read Think and Grow Rich?
I have.
By Napoleon Hill?
I have.
The mastermind principle.
Okay.
Where he talks about aligning yourself with other people who have a similar goal or path as you, but different skill set. And also it reminds me of one of my favorite African proverbs. I always say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And so I'm definitely with you. And I'm saying it on air. I'm willing to collaborate because your mission, you mentioned, is to motivate others. When people ask me, what does TRUE stand for? Well, my mission is very similar to yours, is to empower others to be the best version of themselves. And of course, I understand that it first starts with me being the best version of myself. So yours is to motivate, me is to empower. We're fighting the same battle, so to speak. So it only makes sense that we collaborate on some level.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and you mentioned being a hip hop head. In my book, you know, I wanted to do something different. And what I did, fellow hip hop head as well, I wanted to honor that, my foundation, you know, because everybody everybody quotes the same people, right? John Maxwell, Ralph, you know, I mean, everybody, you know, no need to even go down that rabbit hole. So I said, you know what? I'm going to use hip MCs, hip hop artists, to show people two things, which is resonates with me. Number one, you can come from the hood, you can come from the bottom, and still have light in you, because it's a representation of my life, coming from where I come from, coming from where you come from, and obviously, based on where we are now, there was light in us. So that's part of the reason that I chose to quote MCs and honor hip hop in that way. Because even though, as I mentioned, I don't really say some of those things are part of my culture anymore, I do have to acknowledge and honor that it's a part of my foundation and heritage.
Sure.
And I want to just say, bro, just give you some flowers on air. Oh, you know what? Let me correct that. My man, Born Powerful, peace to the God. He told me, yo, we're men. We don't give each other flowers. What men do is give each other medals. So let me rephrase that. I want to give you a medal, bro, for you to grow up where you grew up at, to have a mother on drugs, to be homeless, and to have what you have, this amazing studio that I'm honored and privileged to be in. And I was also honored to be a guest in your home and treated so well, as I mentioned earlier, to see that you went through all that and manifested all of this. Bro, I know that it's to you, it's just your life. Yo, I just did what I had to do. But, bro, that's extraordinary. That's extraordinary for you to even have the self-awareness and self-discipline to be able to create this for yourself. So I just want you to know, bro, I know your life is far from over and you have a lot more in the tank, but you won this game of life, bro. You won. You have a beautiful family. You created this. You're doing, I consider this community work, you know, in terms of what the positive stuff that you mentioned and wanting to motivate others. Bro, that's community work, man. Especially in this day and age, because in the 70s and the 60s, even 80s, the community work looked a certain way. And now it looks different. Yeah, so just wanted to say that, bro. You know, just give you that medal and to let you know that I'm with you, man.
Man, True, I really appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, man, like sometimes I there's not a day that goes by that I don't pinch myself. I swear to you, man. There's not a day that goes by. There's not one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, but also, I'm well aware that they giveth and they taketh. Life is cruel that way.
Yeah.
From the very, what I would say, the infamous poet Jay-Z. Yeah, man, there's not a day that goes by that I just don't. I'm just like, man, like, but then that's my spark right there, right there in that instance is like, okay, what am I doing today that's gonna motivate someone, that's gonna give someone some kind of like inspiration? Like, who am I engaging with? Which close friend am I following up with today? Whose resume am I looking over? Who, like, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't stop. And my wife will tell you, this guy is like constant like that, I have been making it a point though to take time for myself. Sounds like I'm as being a father, man, like early morning for us is where it's at. You have to be up before the whole house wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they get up, you're on and they're expecting for you to be on, So in that sense, my clock is 4 a.m., man. I'm up at 4 a.m. and I go through my thing, man. I got my coffee. I do a lot of reflection. You know what I mean? A lot of reflection, man. A lot of thinking back on all these different times when it was supposed to go wrong and it didn't go wrong. Like, okay, that was close. That was too close, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, man, there's not a day that goes by that I don't kind of like take the time to just show my gratitude and just also, I think it's important for us as men to really find that space within yourself when you could allow yourself reflection and gratitude. You need that because the way things are set up right now, things are so fast, they're happening so quick. Man, you could so easily get lost in the sauce, man. And then you turn around and you look up and you're like, man, like, where did the time go?
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned like things that could have gone wrong. The interesting thing about my life, bro, is that a lot of things did go wrong, and it could have been worse. It's always, listen, I'm still here in front of you, so it could have been worse. However, somehow it still ended up right. And I was reflecting on that, and I was actually going to do a video about that. A lot of times people ask me, like, yo, True, what's your biggest regret? And I could definitely give you a long list. Not taking school serious, having children at a young age, investing in the wrong relationships. I can keep going and continue. However, I realized that all of those things help to mold and create the man that I am today. Even having children at a young age. When my daughter Lanasia was born in 1999, peace, baby girl, she was the spark for me to start making my transition away from the streets. So even though I can say, wow, I shouldn't have had children so young, had I not had her, I don't know where I would be, because the truth is, I loved her more than I loved my own life. See, I didn't care about life. Like if I got killed, it is what it is. And I'm not saying that to sound tough. That was really my mindset at the time. If I had to go to do time, listen, I'll give you 5 years. Anything more than that, I'm going to DR. I'm running and going to DR. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that was really my mindset, and it was fixed. But thanks to her, and I have 5 children. I love all my children, but she was the first one. So she's just the one that sparked that. I was able to make my transition after, it wasn't an overnight process. Obviously, I caught a big charge, and even that helped, like, oh, snap. I had a vision that came to me. But I say that to say that for anyone who's listening, even if your life is going wrong, number one, it could be worse. Remember that. But also, if you're continuously growing as a person and really striving and being intentional about your time, about the people you surround yourself with, and of course, your actions, that even the wrong turns can somehow lead you to the right place, is what I'm saying. And so life is interesting like that. That's why we need to keep fighting as men.
Sure.
And life is tough for me still, even in this stage of life, because of some of my choices. It is what it is, the power of choice. Some of my choices that I made in the past, and I'm dealing with that. But again, maybe if it wasn't for some of those choices, maybe the message that I have wouldn't even exist, because it is experiencing life the way I did, and having to learn and read some of the books and reflection to get some of the insights, and having to connect with certain people that gave me the mindset that I have. So that's the interesting thing about life also.
Yeah, man. That is so.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Like the way it unfolds.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, man, is like, you may think you made a bad decision, right? You may think you made a bad, appreciate it. You may think you made a bad decision, but to your point, you know, look what happens after. Like, so in the military, they have us, when you make it to like high levels of like supervision, they talk about the second and third order of effects. So as a leader, you need to be good with the fact that you can make the decision. You can say, hey, this is what we're going to do. But you have to think about the second and third order of effects of what you're telling the people who follow you to go do.
Wow.
You know, so
you're, and pardon me not to cut you, I take everything as a learning lesson. So even though you're talking military talk, for me, I'm like, I can use that in life. So it's about thinking about all the possibilities that can happen.
Sure. Right. Okay. Given the circumstances, right? Like, hey, look, like, you know, and it could be something what we would call like a little bit like not too serious, like minute, minute, small, or it could be something on a big scale. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about money and whatever the case, budgets or manpower, that kind of thing. So it can get pretty heavy.
Right.
So you just need to like keep that in mind, right? So as a young 14-year-old living on my own, I left the house at the age of 14.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, it's wild, man. It's wild. Like, I'll give you some snippets, but ultimately it'll be in the book. You know, I didn't know that my mom was bipolar, right? I didn't know that.
And especially during those days, because you're 46, I'm 44, right?
Yeah.
Same generation. They didn't really have the resources to really get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it wasn't
to support people with mental health issues back then.
Yeah,
it's like, yo, she crazy.
Exactly.
No disrespect.
Yep. Or she's a live wire. That's
right.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Right. So, you know, yeah, man. Like we would be out in public, or you know, like my mom was. She was at one point she had tried to get herself clean through methadone. And we were in a shelter out in Far Rockaway, and we get placed into Howard Projects in Brownsville, East New York Avenue and Mother Gaston Boulevard, right? So the reason why my mom picked those projects was because of the bus. The bus ran right in front and took us straight to Kings County to the methadone clinic. So this is an all-black neighborhood. You know, it's an all-black neighborhood, you know, very, you know, Spanish here and there, but it's an all-black neighborhood. And when you're like the minority in such a situation, for whatever it is, you can be targeted for anything, really. Like, you know, it's prey or be preyed on, right? Mm-hmm. In that sense. But with my mom, man, like she would flash, dude. Like, you know, we could be on the bus and someone say something wrong to her and she'll spaz out, and like there would be a fight on the bus as we're on our way to the methadone clinic. You know what I mean? So I grew up with this like instinctive thing that it can go at any time. It could go from 0 to 100 at any time, which is one of the reasons why, like, it's silly, but like I don't wear flip-flops in the city, or when I'm out with my daughter, like doing things. Like, I don't wear flip-flops. I wear sneakers and I tie them up, because that's like drilled into my head that at any given time it can happen, right? Mm-hmm. Things can go wrong. So going back to the whole mental illness part of it, like I had no idea she was bipolar. My thought was that monthly, my mom would go through her menstrual cycle and she would be in a bad mood and I would get kicked out the house because she was like going through whatever she was going through. Little did I know was that she was bipolar.
Wow.
So this one particular day, like she flashes on me, and I already know the whole drill, like get out of here, that whole thing. And I remember I walked from Brownsville all the way to East New York, to like Livonia and like Jerome, to where my girlfriend lived at the time. And dude, I cried the whole way. It was like a 30-minute walk, 40-minute walk. It was cold. It was like February. I walked, and I just told myself, I said, I would never come back here. I'll never come back. I was 14. It's like, I just won't ever come back here. I'll never go through this again. I'll never be kicked out of anywhere. And yeah, man, I went and got like I always worked, so I went and got like I rented a room. My girlfriend at the time, her mom plays the numbers, like the illegal numbers in the hood. So she, like the bookie, the guy who ran the numbers, had a spot where he would like rent out rooms. So this bookie guy, he has these rooms, he rents them out. So it's like, it's unfortunate, man, but it's these individuals or these folks that are just on hard times. You know what I mean? Like they're maybe getting a social security check or whatever, dude. It was sad, man. It was really sad. So my first night in this room, there's nothing in the room. It's a bare room. There was like maybe like a drawer and a bed with a mattress, no sheets, no, and a chair, maybe none of that. And I remember there must have been like ticks or like lice or something in the room, because like I could feel these
bed bugs,
maybe like, I don't know, but bed bugs, I think you could kind of see a little bit. This was like you couldn't really see. So I just remember like that first night, I didn't take my clothes off to go to sleep. Like I put a hoodie on and I put the drawstrings as tight as I could, and that's how I slept that first night. The next day I get like a thing for the room to like bomb the room for the bugs and that kind of thing. From there, again, someone else puts me in touch with someone else, and this person has a building and they're renting out rooms in the bottom of the building. They have rooms framed out. So I was only in this, insect infested place for like a week. And then I get, a plug for the other place. Now I'm in the basement of this building. This was trippy. So it was like 4 rooms. So this guy just framed out 4 rooms in this basement. This was in East New York. This was off of like Cleveland and like Liberty Avenue. So in this basement, I had a guy who was in a merengue band. You would never see that guy. He was just gone. The other guy was a taxi driver. Never see that guy. Gone. And then the guy who kind of like came in around the same time I came in, he had just got out of prison, and he was like a counselor like at Phoenix House, which was like a transitional kind of like halfway house for folks. So he was like, so while in prison, he got like some certifications. Now he could be like a social worker sort of a thing, counselor. And he and this guy would, like in the evenings, I would sometimes run into him. If I could paint this picture for you. So it's a basement of a building. It's a basement of a building that has 4 rooms framed. In the center is a slop sink, like a big drop sink for like filling up buckets and that kind of thing. Off of there was like a shower made out of concrete, kind of like in Puerto Rico. All it had was like a pipe coming out, super small. And I lived there for a few months, actually, until I got placed into like this shelter. But, it'd be funny, man, because like I'd be brushing my teeth at a drop sink. He'd be brushing his teeth like on the opposite side of the drop sink, just kind of like giving me like knowledge almost, you know what I mean? Kind of like, because you got to think, I'm 14 years old, man. I'm 14 years old, working 3 jobs. I knew that no matter what I did, I needed to get my high school diploma. Like I knew no matter what, I knew that I needed to get my high school diploma. So my mom didn't graduate from high school. She got her GED. And I remember how proud she was when she got her GED. And she would just always tell me, she's like, look, no matter where this life takes you, you have to graduate high school. And you know, like it kind of like stuck with me. And I kind of, that's how so through all the nonsense, the shelters and the this and the that, like I knew how important it was. And funny enough, had I not gotten my high school diploma, I would have never qualified to get into the Air Force. Some years later, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my bad, bro. I don't know if we're going all over the place or whatever.
No,
So
I'm with you. I wanted to ask you this when you were telling me. Do you remember, like maybe like what's the main lesson that my man at the counselor, like, is there any like main lesson that he taught you that you remember?
I'm gonna keep it a full stack with you, True. Like he gave me some lessons, right? He gave me some good info, but bro, he was giving me knowledge and giving me info, right? But at the same time, he was scheming on like robbing like a dental office that I guess like some chick he was talking to worked at. And I guess like there was like some sort of like, it wasn't like now, everything's electronic and tapping, like there was like actual cash.
Right.
So I'm like, it was funny to me because he's giving me like this life experience, but then he's also telling me like, hey man, like we could go pull off this heist.
Right.
And I'm like,
right.
I think about that now and I'm just like, I don't even remember the guy's name, bro, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. But to answer your question, what I took from it, right? What I took was that not that I didn't want to be like him, right? I did not that. But I thought to myself, man, I have to figure this out because I cannot be brushing my teeth in a slop sink
as a grown man.
I that can't be it. You know what I mean? So maybe not so much in telling me or more in sharing the experience. I kind of like piece that together a little bit. Yeah. If that makes any kind of sense.
You know, again, something else that we have in common. I didn't have it rough like you. Not that rough. I'm from the hood. Definitely did some things, but my mother was you know, she worked at a factory and she did her best. She wasn't on drugs and she wasn't bipolar. So by no means am I striving to say it was as tough as your situation. At 14 years old, I had a spot to stay in. However, something in common that we had, and we have, I would say, is this instinctual insight, I'll say, that there's more to life. And I always say that that's important. And I always wonder why some people don't have that. I know how I got it. I think I knew there was more to life because at a very early age, I traveled a lot. You know what I mean? Nowhere crazy. You know, I used to spend summers in New York, in the Bronx. You know, I lived in Cali. So I just knew that there was more to life. You know, how did you know in that moment in front of your sink, in front of that sink, I should say, that there was more to life? Because some people, they would just settle like, yo, this is what life is. But for somehow instinctively, you knew that there was more to life. Where did you get that feeling or thought or idea from?
Look, bro, it goes a little bit further back than that.
Okay.
And it goes a little bit further back.
Rabbit holes deep.
Yeah, because
and I'm gonna get your book when it comes out too. And then have you on my podcast.
Oh, please. I'm looking forward to it. I am totally looking forward to that. So to answer your question, man, so like my mom gets introduced to heroin when I'm 4 years old. So our life like literally crumbled. Like, you know, so when I was 5 years old, I never got sent to school that entire year. I wasn't sent to school because my mom had just got hooked onto heroin and I was like attached to her hip. So I'm going with her like wherever she's going. You know what I mean? So the survival instinct started at 4. The survival instinct started at 4. And dude, like, you know, I think it's wild being a father now because like as my daughter's like making these strides and she's like, growing. And like, I feel like I'm living with a different person every 6 months. I'm like, who is this person? I can't help but look at her and then think about myself at that age. You know what I mean?
Yep. I totally know what you mean. My son is 19, Malcolm. And I'm like, yo, I had a baby at that age. So it's like that, right?
Yeah. Just like that, man. So the survival part of it started very early. So to answer your question, when I'm brushing my teeth at that drop sink, I'm not thinking about there's more to life. I'm just thinking about survival. I'm not thinking about, I was clueless to the outside world. What was the outside world? My world was Brooklyn. I didn't need to go anywhere else. Everything was right there. You know what I mean? Yeah. I remember when I turned 16 years old, I became a lifeguard for the Parks Department of New York City. So my first day, so I get assigned this, they're like, hey, you have to show up here. They write something on a paper. So I have an idea of where it is. So ultimately, I'm asking a cop for like directions when I come off of the train. I was way off. So I had to walk, quite a distance. But dude, that was my first time having a purpose to go into Manhattan. I never had a purpose to go into Manhattan. For what? Never. So now I'm in the city. So now I'm being introduced to the city at the age of 16 because I'm going into the city every day, right? I have this job. I'm working at a pool down in Soho, right? The pool was on Spring Street and Thompson, right in the middle of Soho. You'll get a kick out of this, dude. And by the way, anyone who's watching or listening, all this shit is true. Like, I can't even make this up. I can't. I'm not that creative. So, first day of work as a lifeguard, I show up. The park is closed off. They're like, hey, you can't go in there. So as I figure out what's going on, they're shooting a video in there. They're shooting a video in the park, but I have an ID. I'm like, no, I work here. They're like, okay. So now I'm in the park because the pool's in the park, but it's Mace, Diddy, 112, and Mace is shooting a commercial for Foot Locker. So it's crazy, dude. Like, so I'm in the park because I work there, and my whole day was literally watch this. It wasn't even a video. It was like a photo shoot for like Foot Locker or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's like my introduction into like being in the city, right? And it's just like, whoa, like crazy, right? Like, I don't know if you want to talk about any Diddy stuff or whatever. Like I don't mind, but
whatever you want to talk about, I'm here.
But I'll say this, man, and I don't want to get off on a tangent or anything like that. But like, say what you want. The man like is just an icon within the music industry, or however you want to like equate it, and whatever big words you want to use to describe it. What it did for me at that age was I just figured like, wow, like this is someone who's doing it, right? Like it was the first time I seen anyone of like color successful. I think a lot of us, like Bad Boy, Biggie, 112, like that whole thing, right? So it's why I have this on here. You know what I mean? It was all a dream. Like because literally it was all a dream. I slept on the trains. I envisioned what my life would be like outside of outside of my suffering, or outside of this survival thing that I was going through. Yeah. Like what happens when this is not it, And in regards to being positive, like you said earlier, dude, anything I did in the military, as bad as it was, bombs coming in, Afghanistan, Iraq, working 12, 14-hour days or whatever, being out in the field, it's raining. I just always had a positive outlook on it. I would always look to the folks to the right and left of me and be like, at least we're together. Imagine going through this shit by yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, at least we're together, So, yeah, man. Sorry, bro.
That's powerful, man. I once heard a quote. I actually mentioned it in my book, Word Up. I went to a Jay-Z concert and he said, act as if everything that's happening to you is for your benefit. And it's interesting that you say that about your positive outlook because it's something that I've strived to do myself and adapt. I'm not always the best at it. You know what I mean? I do keep it real with people. You know, some people, oh, you know, I'm Mr. Positive. And I'm honest with them. Like, no, that's intentional. Putting positive energy out there. It's not to ignore the negative. I think that we can extract a lot of lessons from the negative. You know, if we channel the energy the right way, you know, just keep it in the context that this is happening for a purpose. I can learn from it and I could become better because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a living, breathing example. And I think that, you know, my life is a representation as well. I think we just can't give up, man. We got to be strong. We got to be strong. And if you survive it, then you can make it better. And patient. Be strong and patient.
That's
because,
the other part. Be patient. Yeah.
Something that I learned in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right, is that sometimes you're going to be in a position that's just whack. You know, the person may have you in a choke, let's say, and all you can do is this. Just put your hand in and tuck your chin a little bit, and you're like, damn, this sucks. I can't barely breathe. But you're not knocked out. You're not choked out. It's just super uncomfortable. And you have to be patient while you're reading the situation, meaning his body movements or whatever, or the clock may run out. And obviously in real life street fight, you don't have that luxury, but we're talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I learned from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that sometimes you're just going to be in a position that just sucks, waiting for your moment. And that's life. And that's why part of my message specifically to the youth is the message of it's going to be tough. And, you know, you got a lot of people like now, for me, it's a lot of fluff talk. Life is great. It'll always be good. Don't worry about it. You know, just be positive. My message is, yes, be positive, but guess what? Life is tough. You got to be strong. Work hard. You know, I also talk about being still. You mentioned earlier about taking the time to be still, resting. I, at one time, did not appreciate and honor rest. I felt like if I was resting, I was slacking. But it wasn't until I read a book about rest, and forgive me for not remembering the title of the book, but the book taught me that resting is actually a huge part to performance. You know, to keep it real simple, the better you rest, because sometimes it's not about how long you rest, it's the quality of rest.
Sure.
The better you rest, the more you can perform. So, that caught me because I'm a man about performance. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. This will help my performance? And that's when I started to honor rest and realize like the whole sleeping for suckers and all of that. Yo, do not listen to that. Sleep is not for suckers. Make sure you get quality, good rest. Helps your mind, helps your body, and a whole bunch of other health benefits. But yeah, man, to me, ultimately, it is about that context for life.
I'll tell you where my rest. So I got put on to like the whole importance of rest and sleep. Maybe I'm 46 now. Probably I'd say like in my mid 30s, kind of. So maybe like 10 years ago, kind of like, okay, like now I'm being schooled to like how important that is. Dude, I'm so addicted to like figuring out like my sleep patterns and everything. So about 6 months ago, I started doing yoga. So I started doing hot yoga. So finally,
I love hot yoga.
Oh man, like I swear by it. I haven't touched a weight in like 6 months. I just started on the weights again like 2 weeks ago. But so for the past 6 months, that's all it's been. Just hot yoga in the evenings and focusing on just being still, because it's hard. It's hard if you're not used to it. It's hard to be still and to learn how to meditate and that kind of thing. If you don't come from that, like who teaches you how to do that? I wasn't taught. I mean, of course, like you could go on YouTube, you get some videos, you could read some books, but in terms of like someone showing you, like no one's ever showed me that. But now I'm being introduced because I'm going to these classes. So man, like on a good week, four nights, every session is anywhere between like 600 to 700 calories burned.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's cool because there's like a portion of the class. The first 10 minutes is almost like getting comfortable and getting grounded. And it's a meditative like 10 minutes, I call it. It's like the warm up. And then the last 10 minutes is like you're also in a meditative state where you're kind of like bringing your heart rate down. You're aligning your breath because it's hot. Your body's hot. You're sweating and that kind of thing. I wish I would have known this 10 years ago. Did I know about it? Yes, I knew about it. But did I know the benefits of how it would make me feel? No, I didn't know that because I didn't take the time, right? You mentioned something in the book. Let me go through my notes real quick, man. I had no clue what I was good at and what I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, this is exactly what I'm telling you about. Like, I didn't know that any of this stuff, I knew it existed. I didn't know how it would affect me. So here on this platform, anyone who's listening, man, like, yoga's good for you. Hot yoga is even better for you. You know what I mean? And if you could carve out some time to get yourself into that space and figure out that energy that you have inside, man, it'll do wonders for you, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I think hot yoga and regular yoga, and if you're not comfortable with the word yoga, we can say extreme stretching, right? It's so important. It's so important because number one, it works out the involuntary muscles as well. See, I go to the gym. I'm a gym enthusiast, calisthenics, all of that. And I can tell you, there's people that I know that could bench 350, all of that. But then you put them in the downward dog position, that's a yoga position for those who don't know. They'll start shaking, right? Big muscle, strong. It's because of the involuntary muscles, the fibers. Life is about yin yang, right? You have to find a way to harmonize all aspects of that, you know, in every aspect of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing about yoga too is that you have to study life, you know, especially us men, right? The older we get, our bones become stiffer.
Mm-hmm.
Our muscles become stiffer, especially, you know, depending on your job, you're sitting,
Mm-hmm.
driving, all of this. So what yoga does is to assist us with or combat and be proactive with the effects of that, which happens naturally, so to speak. I'm hesitating using the word naturally because I do think that if we're aware of these things when at a younger age, then it doesn't have to happen. Mm-hmm. But if you don't do these things at an early age, then yeah, it's going to happen. So it is what it is. The other thing about yoga and meditation, it's an opportunity to be in tune and connected with the body. And I think that in this day and age, especially like with the cell phone era, technology era, it's tough and challenging to be in tune with ourselves, you know, that we experience while we're in those postures. And you mentioned meditating. I've been meditating for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
How'd you get put on?
I think it's through, I'm gonna call it, for lack of a better word, the black conscious movement,
Mm-hmm.
and starting to tap into that and starting to, and I began to be introduced to spirituality from that perspective. And then eventually it led to other doors.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned about meditation
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. And the pinnacle, I'm going to tell you a little story, you know, and this is me, bro. Like, I ain't with that crazy stuff. I would say the pinnacle experience that I've had with meditating, I had an outer body experience. It's the second time that I had an outer body experience. The funny thing is, the first time is after committing a robbery with my friends, strong arm robbery. The second time,
I want to hear all about
this.
this.
Definitely was through meditating. And it was the first time that it ever happened. I haven't been able to recreate that. But it was interesting. While I was experiencing the outer body experience while meditating, as soon as I became conscious of it and started to feel excited, I was back in my body. It was like, I don't know what it is. Like, when I became conscious and started to react or respond to the experience, I lost it instead of just being, which I wanted to just say for anyone who thinks that maybe this whole mystical stuff is whatever, meditation is just being present. At the end of the day, You could be walking and meditating. It's just about being present and not allowing your mind to control you. Some people think that it's about not having any thoughts. That's very challenging to do. I have experienced that too. I experienced that on a daily basis. You know, I experienced that today when I was at the beach. But I would say for the most part, it's just being aware of your thoughts. And I think that that's an easier thing and an easier process to transition
Mm-hmm.
to eventually not having quote unquote no thoughts. And it's a back and forth thing. Just for anybody who wants to try meditation, don't worry about getting it right. Just sit down, put your phone in airplane mode. That's what I do. Also, something that I do is I put a timer on, so I'm not worried about time. Like I'm very how do I say I value time so much that I always think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so what I do to ease my mind, I'll put a timer on whatever. I do something called 555. I meditate for 5 minutes, I read for 5 minutes, and I do light yoga for 5 minutes. So I'll put a timer on literally for 5 minutes to get into posture. Now it's easy for me to get into posture because I've been doing it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a start. I just wanted to share that with your audience. You wanted to learn about. You wanted to know about the other time I had an outer body experience. I'll keep it real simple and basic. Some friends and I, we did a strong arm robbery in Passaic, New Jersey. And after coming back, making a long story short, after coming back to the hood and sort of celebrating our spoils and what we got and everything like that, there was a moment when I just sat back and my friends, we're all joking. And at the time I smoked, I was, everybody was joking, smoking, drinking, and, laughing. I just sat back and I just had this experience where I literally was detached from the moment and was able to see it from like a bird's eye view. And I had a moment where I felt bad about the situation.
Mm.
And that was another spark in my life as well. Like I remember that, like I'm even just like getting the chills talking about it. Like I remember that moment. I was like, yo, nah, this ain't it. Like what the thought I had, like this ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to be joking and celebrating about this stuff. And so, just like that's my life has been like that. Like I've had some big sparks and then some little sparks where moments would happen, things would happen, and I would get like little messages, little feelings about making a shift. And I would store it and sometimes take action right away. Or if not, sometimes it was a process of taking action that led somewhere. Yeah, so that was the first time I had an outer body experience. It's crazy. I don't know why, but it happened. I was probably super present. I was probably meditating, super present about what was going on, and just I don't know I don't even know how to explain why that feeling because I'm with it. This is my crew, but for some reason I just was different in that moment.
How this might be like a side question or whatever, but like the folks that you were or the guys or girls that you were, let's just say like within your group, how many of those folks are you still in contact with?
I'm in contact with most of them, the ones that are still alive or the ones that are not in prison.
Yeah.
I'm actually in contact with most of them.
Really?
Yeah. We have most of them have a great relationship. Yeah.
Because like for me, man, like we were so transient. We were just all over the place. I went to like 12 different elementary schools. I went to like 3 different junior high schools, and I went to 3 different high schools. I was kicked out of one high school on a superintendent suspension. I was gone. I was out of the New York City school system for a year. And thank God that through my mom's, even with the little that we had, like she made sure we went to every single appointment to get me back into the school system. But I think about all those folks that I had that it's almost like a current. So like I'd be on this side of the current, I knew that wasn't right. And then I kind of go to this side of the current, I know that wasn't right. And then just slowly navigated out of all these different like possibilities. So all these different people that I was interacting with, like I'm not in touch with a lot of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, so yeah.
It's just interesting because you think at that time that these are your folks, these are your people. This is who your tribe, but in reality, like it's not.
Right,
You
right.
know, you're
For
like
some as cliche as it sound, it was just some what they call it for the season. Yeah, but I'm actually still friends, with like I'm still friends with one of my first friends from kindergarten. His name is Lamont Gates. Yo, Lamont, what's good? You know what
that's
I'm
awesome.
saying?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, like I got a picture with him from in our kindergarten class and
Yeah.
everything. I got like a before and after. But yeah, what I will say is that with some of them, the energy exchange is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes, like I even think about that sometimes, like, damn, how was I with this person every day? And I'm not saying that like in a judgmental way. I'm saying that like in a realistic way, because now when we speak, it's not the same. I've even have experience like forcing, like
Mm-hmm.
almost like a forceful conversation,
Mm-hmm.
which I strive not to do. In this stage of my life, I understand that life requires effort. Things require effort. You know what I mean? For
Mm-hmm.
sure. Like for you and I to stay in contact, it requires effort. We have
Sure.
to be intentional about it. But I don't force anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. Putting effort and forcing, two different things. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, man, and I feel super blessed for everyone that I know, the day ones that I'm still in contact with, and we went through some things, and a lot of us grew. Some didn't. You know what I mean? But I appreciate them for who they are and what they are and what they bring to my life. But I know how to move. But on the block, man, they like I would say they celebrate me, my bro. Like they celebrate me.
And they should.
They even protect me. Like there's times where I'm like, yo, I'm on my way to the hood, and they'll be like, not today. I appreciate that. I
Yes.
appreciate, and the thing is too, like I'm still connected to the hood that I wonder if sometimes I want to be careful with my words because I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. I'm just gonna say the way it's coming and just know that, if you know me, you know my heart. But sometimes I wonder if it holds me back because, but I don't think so though, because I want to do it my way. And I want to be successful my way. And it doesn't include, like, I still go on the block. Like I'm gonna still take pictures with my brothers that I survived the streets with, because the truth is I wouldn't have survived without them. You know what I'm saying? I survived because of them. And so, but sometimes, like, I know some people that I am aware of some people, I would say, that they totally just detached. They don't go back.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do none of that, and they've achieved certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if I want it that way. I want to stay connected to where I'm from in an intelligent way.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is too, like, that's where I feel most comfortable with. As crazy as I feel more comfortable in the trenches. Funny, I'm an X-ray tech. That's what I do for a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do mobile, so I travel. And so, like, you had other techs that would be like, yo, I don't want to go to Newark, let's say, right? Newark, New Jersey. They don't want to go to Newark because of how it is. And so I'm like, yo, send me. I feel more comfortable in that space. That's where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
in a
yeah.
way, in some ways, depending on the situation. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on a tangent about that, but just wanted to say, like, it is important for me to stay connected to where I'm from. And it is important for me to honor those relationships as well, in a way that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe in, like, Drake has a song called "No New Friends." I don't believe in that. I definitely don't believe in that. Like, and I know the difference between a friend and an acquaintance,
Sure.
but absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I'm on a path, and my path is multi. You talking about being all over the place, bro? My path is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends I work out with. I got friends from the hood, friends that I have intellectual conversations with, friends from the Black conscious movement. You get what I'm saying?
Sure.
And I love it all. And somehow I know how to manage it all. But then you have people like my wife, right? She has like a very small circle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? She's like, yo, I don't know how you do it. So listen, this brings me joy. This is how my life is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm juggling it the best way I can.
Are you like a June baby? Is your birthday in June?
No, November.
November.
Yeah, next
Okay.
month, November
Right.
24.
Because
I'm a Sagittarius.
yeah.
Sagittario.
Okay. Because I was thinking, like, I was wondering if you were like a Cancer.
Oh, okay.
Like Cancer, like not a Cancer, but like Cancer.
No, I know what you mean. The sign,
the
zodiac sign.
zodiac sign.
Yeah.
Because of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Now if you study the zodiac, they say Cancers are really emotional. Yeah, I'm not an emotional person. Yeah.
So I'm Cancer. My daughter's Cancer.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
like we share our birthdays are like 3 days apart.
Oh,
you know what I
word.
mean? But like for me, I'm okay being out with everyone. I'm also okay with being inside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But yeah, we love hard, bro. We love with
our
our heart on our sleeves. You know what I mean? It's very hard to like hide our emotions if we're, you know what I mean?
My man Bumani's a Cancer, man. Shout out to Bumani. Very loyal. Cancers are very loyal too, man. So shout out to y'all. Y'all make good friends.
Yeah. Talk to me about NLP.
Neuro-linguistic programming. The most famous, I think he's the most famous NLP practitioner is Tony Robbins.
Okay.
So a really basic definition of NLP, right? You have neural, which means the nervous system, the brain, the mind, and the body connection, right? Linguistic, language, and then program, right, is how the philosophy behind it. And so what NLP specifically is, it's the mind and body connection and language of it's a system of how to be, I won't say the best version of yourself, but perform better in life. There's a term called states, how to be in a better state, right? So if you're in a depressed, I was about to call it state. So if you're depressed, right, that would be considered a negative state. And so there's a methodology and things that you can do to get out of that state. A really basic example I like to give. And first, right, let me ask you, if somebody lacks confidence, right? If they lack confidence, what's their physical posture like?
Could be a number of different postures.
Right. Just give me like
maybe head down, shoulders.
That's enough.
Yep.
Head down, shoulders in, right? So that's a prime example of how our state, right, lack of confidence, fearful, reflects in our body. So that's why the neuro-linguistic, right? It's a language that our body, I'm in this fearful state, and now my body's communicating it, right? And we know that body language is the majority of the communication that we do as human beings. So what NLP does is sometimes takes the physical route to assist with a mental state. So if you're lacking confidence and you're my client, because I'm a life coach, NLP practitioner, I would say, man, put your shoulders back, head up. All right, chest out. That's what's up, man. I might even be like, yo, do some push-ups, man, so you can feel stronger, right? You're like, what the hell? I'm like, I came to you for confidence. We're getting there. What I'm doing is I'm putting you in a more efficient and empowering state that will bring the confidence. You know what I mean? So we start, boom, chest out. How you feel now? Yeah. It's not to say like it's going to magically happen, but now we're working towards that state. So that's what NLP is. It's basically it's a methodology and system of how to become in a better state, depending on what your goals are in life. Yeah.
So who put you on to that? How did you get put onto NLP?
Great question. Studying. You
Really?
know, I'm a huge fan of personal development.
Okay.
I've been through many personal development programs.
Okay.
I'm going places, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I've spent thousands of dollars on working on myself, you know, in many different ways, you know, like therapy. I've been in therapy when there was still a negative stigma about therapy. You know, I've been in therapy, personal development programs. And so just on that journey, you know, it's one of the things that I found, you know, it's NLP. And I liked it because it's practical. You know, it's very practical. It's systematic. It just made sense to me. And then in addition to that, Tony Robbins practices it. So I'm like, well, if it works for him,
sure,
right? If it can give me a percentage of how much it worked for him, then it'll definitely work for me. Yeah, so that's how I discovered it.
It's funny how you mentioned like the confidence part because so with my daughter, you know, my wife and I, she's our only child. We had her late, so we're, you know, it appears that like at every stage or every level as she progresses, there's like some new challenges or something that we have to adapt to or that kind of thing. So, but for me, my thing with my daughter and how my parenting, whatever, gem or tact or however you want to like describe it, has been like her confidence. So early on, I've just always felt like, man, like we have our children as children for such a limited amount of time. Like we get so caught up sometimes in like the appearance of our home or whatever it is, like there's toys everywhere and this kind of thing. And I tell my wife, I'm like, this is a phase. This is a season. We will grow out of this. There'll be no toys at some point, like
Indeed.
she's only going to play with Barbies for a certain amount of time. She's only going to do these things for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But what I want to tell you is that when the day comes that ultimately they're no longer in your, I wouldn't say control, but when they're ready, our children are ready to spread their wings.
My oldest is 25. I get it.
Right. And we spoke about that earlier, and God bless, man.
Thank you.
That's I couldn't imagine having a 25-year-old, Can't imagine what those conversations are like. We'll get to that though.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm getting at is that when they're ready to spread their wings or leave the nest or whatever it is, I feel that at least I can go back to the knowledge or the knowing that I empowered her to be confident. And whatever else, like we know that they're going to make mistakes. We know it. They're going to stumble. We just pray that it's not a mistake that we can't come back from
Like
or learn from, right? Like there's certain things that, God forbid, right? Like drinking and driving, you hurt someone. There's nothing I could do. Like I'll be there for you, but ultimately there's nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel strong knowing that what I did for the majority of your upbringing was like instill confidence in you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're confident, man, like instinctively, man, you won't be a follower. Mm-hmm. You're not going to go along with the dumb shit. You're not going to just, or I would hope not, because you just have this level of confidence because it's a cruel world, man. It's a cruel world out there. And we can't be there at every single turn or decision-making opportunity for our kids. They have to kind of do that on their own. So I just default to the fact that it's the whole confidence part, Yeah. So we're big on my bad. We're big on, experiences and introductions to new things. And believe it or not, a lot of the stuff that I'm introducing my daughter to, I'm learning it for the first time too, because I didn't grow up being able to do these kinds of things.
Indeed. Yeah. I truly believe that confidence is probably one of the most important things. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, there's like competent confidence and there's incompetent confidence. Some people, they just, right. But I believe that having it is better than not having it because anything that you do in life, you got to believe that you're able to get it done. And so I think that that's probably one of the most important lessons that you can teach someone because I know some people that have the skills, right, in any given area, but if you don't lack the confidence to do it, then it'll just be a waste. Mm-hmm. But then you have people who have confidence but not the skills, and they could almost like semi-wing it and figure it out and get there. Mm-hmm. So I always say like, yo, if you're gonna choose one, I would say have the confidence. That's where you want to be. And I could relate to that because I experience, and even to this day, a lot of self-doubt. I wouldn't say I'm someone who lacks confidence. I don't know if I would go that far to say that, but I do know that I definitely experience a lot of self-doubt. And I also have a big life and big goals, not to make up an excuse for that, but I also do a lot of self-reflecting and realize that if you keep your life small and basic, then you don't have a lot of mental battles, because your life is simple and basic. But with a lot of the stuff that I juggle, I have to remind myself like, bro, you good. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like you already like overextending yourself in some areas. I also did this because me knowing what NLP does, I programmed myself to have a reference point of courage. So, and not to say that you have to do this or anybody has to do this, but I went skydiving, right? And what skydiving did for me, not only on a theoretical level, but neurologically. And what I mean by that is like it was an experience that I can refer back to through my memory as well as my body. And the body's probably the most important one than the memory. So now, whenever I'm facing something, I always remind myself, could it be worse than jumping out of a plane? You know what I'm saying? Because the consequence of jumping out of a plane and a parachute not opening, right? Because there's like faith involved, there's courage involved, understanding like, yo, this parachute's gonna open when I jump out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because for me, sometimes life is like that. It's like you're jumping out of a plane, like starting a podcast, starting a business, a new relationship, whatever. It can feel like you're jumping out of a plane. And so I think that there's certain things that we can do also to wire our own neurological system to have a reference point of courage, of faith. Like, last time this happened and everything eventually ended up working out. So you know what? I'll be okay. And that's why it's important. And I respect what you're doing because your daughter will have that. It's not to say that she's not going to experience fear, but she'll have a lifelong legacy, at least from the ages 0 to 7, which is what's called the imprint phase. I learned that in NLP. Not to say that it's just an NLP thing, but that's what I learned. From ages 0 to 7, that's the most important stage of a child's development. Like things that happen in that stage and phase, they will take with them as an adult. A lot of our traumas come from that stage, 0 to 7, and we can use that trauma. I know I'm going, here and there. We can use that trauma as something for good or for bad. Like you've experienced trauma since 4 years old, right? Since then, you've been on survival mode. You're probably not in survival mode, not now. However, you use that in a positive way. You channel that in a way to get you where you are today. This beautiful home, this beautiful studio, this amazing town that I'm in right now. Because of your invite, thank you again.
Absolutely,
and so, my wife and I, my mother, my wife and I, what we tell our children when we're building with them, teaching them, is this is just a tool for your toolbox. The toolbox is the mind, and whatever the tool is, whatever insight, knowledge, or whatever, it's just something for their toolbox. So you're putting things in your daughter's toolbox that she can choose, because life is about choice.
Choice, sure.
To use if she, chooses to. Yeah, but confidence, bro, I think that's probably the most important quality someone needs to succeed.
When I first joined the military, I didn't realize that my confidence was coming across as being cocky. And I was having such a hard time, especially when I got to my first base. I had been on my own since I was 14. I'm now 21 years old. And I think this...
You're also from Brooklyn. The personality is different.
It's a different thing. And brother, thankfully, and I tell you thankfully, there was someone who was not in my immediate chain of supervision, who kind of saw what was going on, started to mentor me. That was the first time I even realized that there was a word for that action. I never heard the word. I didn't even know it existed until I got into the military. But, just having this person mentor me, man, and just share these tips, right? And it was a bunch of different things, but things like, hey, show up 30 minutes before you're supposed to be at work, learn how to make a pot of coffee, leave 15 minutes late, and if there's nothing going on, pick up a broom. And I kind of just adapted those kind of things because honestly, True, I think had it not been for that experience or interest of mentorship, I probably would have been kicked out. I don't think I would have made it, is what I'm getting at.
As far as you went,
yeah. But then what it quickly taught me was that, in the military we say perception is reality. The perception, dude, and then when
NLP says that too, by the way.
Perception is reality, right? So little things, man, it's just funny. Hey, man, you could stop and talk to people, because I worked, my first job was in the hospital. So you could stop and talk to people, but if you do it with a folder in your hand, it just looks different. So the perception is that you're handling business, but it's just the way the mind works. You know, if you leave at 4:30, just looks like you're leaving at the time that you're supposed to leave. But if you leave 15 minutes later, maybe you're not even doing anything really. I hate to say it like that, but now the perception is, right? Because all the cars are leaving the parking lot. Your car is still in the parking lot. It's just things like this, man. It's just, you know.
Yeah, you know, it just speaks to, again, like the power of like how you use things, because that perception can be manipulated. You know, like you said, the person could be like not doing anything, but putting the image like the person is.
Right.
And so, yeah, man, it gets tricky.
It gets tricky.
You know, and it all goes back to the person. But one thing that you and I know, right, and I learned this in the nation, right, a penalty or reward for one ways and actions is the definition of justice. So to keep it simple, that's karma, that's consequence. For every action, there's a reaction. So if someone wants to manipulate, because anybody could use these tools. You can use NLP in a negative way.
Sure.
People use the Bible in a negative way, right? Or and so for the Quran, whatever you want to call. However, none of us can escape consequence and results. So the person that's staying 15 minutes late but's not producing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, people are gonna see that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
The person that's staying 15 minutes later and producing, like that person is gonna have different results. You know what I'm saying? That's anything at the gym, right? Anything you do more of, you're going to have different results, and results don't lie. So the manipulation of the perception can only work but for so long. You know what I mean?
Then that cat's out the bag.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
That cat's out the bag.
Eventually.
Yeah.
And I think that men like us, not to say that I'm perfect, anything like that, you got to look in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? And we don't even know like the effects of that on that type of person, you know, manipulating it. But I love that, man. If nothing going on, is pick up a broom. And I know that he's probably using it as a metaphor or an analogy. Like basically like find something to find a way to contribute. And it reminds me of one of my philosophies that I learned, which is regardless to what space that I enter or person that I meet, make sure that I'm making it better or at the very least the same. You know what I'm saying? But never leave someone or a space worse. Now, I'm not perfect. I've had relationships with women that maybe didn't work out. They might tell you, no, I'm whatever, right? I'm just saying, for me, a universal principle that I strive to live by is anyone that I come encounter with, and any space that I encounter or occupy, I'm either going to leave it better or at the very least the same. So it's like these little things that we picked up in our journey of life, right? That we resonate with. You know what I'm saying? So and that's how I strive to live my life. And, you know, so, and you mentioned mentorship. I always say, just from studying history, right? Studying how the indigenous people lived. And when I say indigenous, I'm grouping them up in the original man. You know what I mean?
Hunter-gatherer.
Correct. Thank you. Mentorship was a part of life. It wasn't this thing that you had to look for, hire somebody. It was a part of life. The men were with the boys, teaching them the ways. And as someone who has studied success, whether it's books or the people that I know or through my podcast, one thing that I see in common out of many things, somewhere, somehow, there was a mentor. There was somebody involved. You know, for me, a lot of my mentors are I never met because they were through books. You know what I mean? Like I mentioned Tony Robbins. You know, he was a mentor of mine. He don't even know me, but he was a mentor of mine.
Sure.
You know, John Maxwell. You know, in terms of leadership, I learned a lot of qualities about leadership through John Maxwell. He was a mentor of mine. So I think the best mentorship, though, is like face to face, like doing something. Sure, you know what I mean? Yeah. So indeed.
So in the military, man, it's like that's like a huge part of why we're such a strong military, because that is pretty much ingrained from like an early stage. Like mentorship, there's mentorship programs and that kind of thing. And ultimately, it's just like someone sees a little bit of themselves in you.
Yeah.
That's kind of like where it starts. You know, they see a little bit of themselves in you and they just want to kind of like, but then it's also up to you as the mentee to take heed. Because if you don't, like ultimately you're up to your own choices, right? You're up to your own where you decide to put your both
Yeah.
feet,
That's why we have to be a term that I learned in personal development world is be coachable. Some people they choose not to be coachable. What that basically means is being open-minded to, number one, look at yourself and say, okay, what I'm doing, I can do this in a better way, or what I'm doing is totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then be open to the fact of learning a different method or learning a better way. And then you got to do the work to then correct the behavior or put it into practice. Yeah, man, but huge.
Agreed.
I think as a man, it's our responsibility and duty to do that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Somehow, some way, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some of the mentors that I had. Even like a brother named Respect the Law from the Nation of God's Earth, 5%er. Bro, as a teenager, I would go to his house, man. I remember, man, shout out to Respect. Thank you, brother. Like I would go to his house and he would just be getting off of work. Like I remember I would go there, he'd be like, yo, hold up, man, let me freshen up a little bit. And now, right, as a man, as an adult, like, yo, sometimes you come home from work, you're tired. You want your time to yourself and relax or whatever. And, he has this teenager that's not related to him. He has no responsibility, and he's like, all right, man. And he would like sometimes, make me something to eat. It would be sometimes it would be me and some of my other friends, or buy us something to eat. And we would be watching karate flicks. He would bring the lessons out and he'll be teaching us. Like those moments were valuable, and we're still in contact. I consider him a big brother, and I'm grateful for him. You know what I'm saying? And some of the things that I really truly appreciate is, he'll tell me like, bro, like I see you, man, you're doing great work, or like, wow, you know what I'm saying? And it's just, it makes me feel good, not no stroking ego stuff, but to know that he knows that his hard work, his investment in me, went a long way. And I say that with all humility, but it did. You know what I mean? So
you're still in contact with him?
Absolutely. I can call him right now.
Wow.
I can call him right now and he'll justify everything I'm saying.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, man. Respect. His name is Respect from Patterson, New Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah, huge. So, I had him, I had others, and, so yeah, man. So even that, it's like, yo, like I have to pay if somebody did that for me. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of the things that I do, whether it's my book or when I go speak to the youth or my podcast, it's an extension of that work of contributing to others. You know what I mean? And just want to make them or the space better. What else is there in life but for me, that's the purpose of life, especially as a man. Like, you gonna be you gonna take from the space and not put back, or you're gonna waste? You're not gonna add on. Nah, man, the purpose of life is to add on. You know what I mean? Yeah, man, that's the way I see it.
No,
and understanding that sometimes adding on is destroying. You know what I mean? Sometimes, like, you got to destroy the house to build a better one. You know what I mean? I got rid of relationships, and now I'm in the best one of my life. Shout out to my wife. You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to destroy to also build. So it's understanding when, and just make sure you don't destroy the best one. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you traveled a lot. You've been all over the world. You know what I'm saying? What's your favorite place that you traveled and why?
So
I know it's your podcast.
No, listen, I love it. I love. Listen to me, I love it.
Putting you in the house.
I love it because what we're having right now is a conversation, and this is what I envisioned for Spark.N.Stride is the conversation. So sometimes I'm on the podcast and I feel like I'm interviewing, and I'm like, man, like I don't want to interview, bro. Like I want to talk. You know what I mean? I want a volley of conversation. So I'll tell you this. So what I've been blessed with is the opportunity to reflect. And what I'm getting at is that I've been blessed with the opportunity to reflect. And when I reflect on things like travel, I was in different spaces in my life. So the travel or the experience of traveling impacted me like sort of differently.
I understand what you mean, because and I still want your answer.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of times people ask me as a reader, I've read over 400 books. Yo, what's your favorite book? Or even with music, who's your favorite artist? I would have to say it depends on what stage of life you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My favorite artist now is different than when I was a teenager.
Sure.
Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah, no. So in 2008, I got a chance to go to Africa. I was living in Italy. I was in the Air Force. I was stationed in Italy. So my first job in the Air Force was called medical logistics. So they called it a medical logistics technician.
Mm-hmm.
And you start out working in a warehouse, sweeping up and inventories and that kind of thing. And there's all these different other sections of it, So one of the primary responsibilities is we're responsible for what's called WRM, War Reserve Material.
Mm-hmm.
And this is ultimately like mobile hospital units.
Mm-hmm.
They could be 25 bed, 50 bed, 100 bed, 200 to even like a 500 bed hospital that we would deploy. So we would have to deploy with these, just call them like a huge box, but I mean it's really big.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go out to like these different areas and pretty much build out the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity that while in Italy, I went with a team of people from Italy to Africa in 2008.
Which part of Africa?
Mali.
Okay.
I went to Mali, Africa, and what we did was we worked with the Mali military and we trained with them, because one of the main things at that time there was that in Mali they don't have like an ambulatory service the way we have. So one of the first things we did is we did an exercise with the Mali military, and we replicated like turned over like a car accident, like a bus turned over, that kind of thing. So we built out this hospital. We worked with the Mali military. We made believe, like triage and all this kind of thing, and we worked. So that was the first part of it. Second part of it was that we actually went out to different villages, and it was other military services. So the Navy was with us. The Navy did the dental. The Air Force, which I was in the Air Force, we did the medical. The Army did the vaccination of the livestock, and the Marines worked with the gendarme, which is like the like military police kind of. They did security. So it's kind of wild, right? Because till this day, True, when I reflect back on being humble, grateful for what we have, I think Africa, Mali. Dude, like the fact that we could I have an outdoor shower, bro. Come on. Like, you know what I mean? The fact that we got running water like that, and I got plants in this outdoor shower, and like we could kind of like bask in the sun and rinse off from a day at the beach, right? Yeah. But for me, it's way more than that. For me, it's like, oh wow, we have like running water and we have electricity and these kinds of things. So they housed us in like the largest hotel in Mali, and what would happen is we used it like as a command center, and that's where we had all the computers up. That's where we had the storage for our medications and that kind of thing. So every morning, we had 2 buses where they have us housed in like this, like the biggest resort in Mali. So what's happening is like every morning, this is after, so the first week was dealing with like the military and helping them like with the triage. We were part of like this military parade. So the second week, now we're traveling out to these remote villages, and we're getting on a bus early in the morning, and bro, like think like coming to America. Think coming to America when King Joffrey comes looking for Hakeem. You know what I mean? Like that. Like, so we're moving like that, dude. Like bus, what was it? It was like Toyota Ford Runners. So it's the bus, it's 2 buses. And then in the front, you have a Toyota Ford Runner, like two in the back. Then in front of them, you have a pickup truck with the gendarme with AKs hanging out the back. Same thing in the rear. You have another one. And then you had 2 motorcycles and 2 motorcycles in the back. dude, and we're just moving through Mali in the hills. We're pulling up to these villages. I'll show you some footage. I think I have some that I could show you. But um, but again, in regards to me reflecting on being like grateful and humble, like it's that experience. And then of course, like I lived in Italy, like that was like a different part of my life. I was like going through a divorce. I was trying to figure things out, you know what I mean? And you know, but ultimately that Africa trip really like did something for me in terms of like being humble and being grateful. So when you said I had no clue what I was good at and what I wanted to be, that's a quote out of your book. How did you figure out what you were good at? Because I know what helped me figure it out, but I'm curious to find out what made you come to that realization.
Great question. Interesting enough, I was not aware of the fact that I was already doing what I was supposed to do. I was lacking focus, awareness, and confidence to look in my own life to see what I was already doing and what was giving me the results I wanted. However, when I reflect on it now, in this stage of life, it was a training ground for me to get to where I am now. I'll give you an example. One time I did a presentation in college I'm an X-ray tech, right? So I have my associate's degree. That's what I went to school for. And for physics class, I did a presentation. You know, it was a part of the assignment that everybody had to do. And so I did my presentation. Everything went well. After the class, Mr. Mamatz requested that I stay back. He was like, yo, True, let me holler at you real quick. I'm thinking like, oh man, he about to rip me to shreds. You know, he didn't want to embarrass me. He pulled me. He was like, yo, I'm not supposed to say this because I get paid from the X-ray program to promote and teach about X-ray. He said, you're in the wrong field, my man. You should be speaking. You should be a professor. Now, I was still selling drugs at the time. I was going to college during the day and selling drugs at night. You know, I just caught a big charge. You know, I maybe when he said that, I was like dealing with that. You know, definitely on, you know, I was on probation. Eventually, I got like 10 years probation. You know, I paid a lawyer off and got like, I escaped prison time. That's the most important thing for me. And so I also used to do poetry, right? And so I one time was the head instructor for a youth program. All of these things I was just doing, not really, it wasn't focused. It wasn't like I'm this. I'm just doing that. And so to answer your question, how did I finally like own it? Because that's all I really had to do was own it. I just came to a point in my life where I wasn't happy. And although I was grateful for like the X-ray field, I'm grateful for it, bro. It took me out the hood. You know, it changed the trajectory of not only my life, but my children's lives. But that was a survival choice. That wasn't a choice that I chose because it was something that I desired to do. All I desired was to do something different than sell drugs. And so, and I could get into why I chose X-ray and whatnot. But I do want to answer your question, make sure I answer that. So after all of this experience, having some ups, some downs, and just like, man, some emotional roller coaster moments. And like, I really want to do something with my life, something that resonates with who I am, something that brings me some sort of joy. I listen, as a man, I don't believe our life is about joy, so to speak. But I do believe as a man, you should experience joy. I just don't think you should live for joy, just a whole nother topic. So I looked within my circle, family, friends that I knew would be honest. And I realized I kept getting, oh, and also reflecting on some of my performance that I was getting, like feedback. Well, what's the universe telling me? Like real world examples, people, results. And it all came back to some form of speaking. So then I said, okay, what am I going to speak about? Because at one point in time, I was ashamed of my story. You know what I mean? Especially like when I left the streets alone and became like quote unquote like a civilian, so to speak.
Bro, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna hold you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going, please.
I was ashamed of my story and didn't really want to tell people outside of where I'm from and what I've done. And then I realized, to make a long story short, that what I was ashamed about was actually my superpower. And it came from me like opening up a little bit, and people were like, wow, that's so inspiring. That's amazing. Can you come speak to my children about that? Oh, I need you to speak to my nephew. Oh, I need you to speak to my husband. So I realized, like, oh, wow. You know, like what I was ashamed about actually is getting me accolades. And, you know, it's actually putting me in positions to use my story not only as something to get me further in life, but also make a difference in life for others as well as myself. And so I think that it was a lot of life experience. And man, for me, it was the long way, bro, because I wish, like when I see people who are clear and they're young, what they want to pursue, I'm like, yo, hats off to them. Because for me, it was a lot of ups and downs, taking the long way when there was a shortcut and all of that. But ultimately, I think that I was the one getting in the way. But I have to also acknowledge, though, that was a training ground for me. The long way was a training ground. Like, even when people say, True, you speak so well, they don't understand that poetry helped me. They don't understand that reading helped me. They don't understand that leading the youth program helped me. You know, I was a part of an organization called Extended Black Family Movement, and we had to hold meetings, and sometimes it would be my turn to run the meeting. College. Like all of these experiences were molding me and shaping me, and I'm still being molded and shaped, you know. But to answer your question, how did I discover my purpose? Number one, I finally looked. I had to look. What is my purpose? Ask, what is my purpose? And then look at the feedback. What is the universe telling me? You know, what type of results am I getting? And then I've done a lot of things. Like for example, at one time I was part of a MLM, multi-level marketing, because somebody met me and it was like, yo, True, man, you would kill it in multi-level marketing. I want you to be a part of my team. You know what I mean? And you know, and I was like, okay. And I realized like, I don't enjoy this, number one, and I ain't really feeling this. So sometimes I think a part of life is just doing things and finding out what is for you and what is not for you. Yeah, man. So I put in a lot of work, man, to get where I am. I could show you videos. I put in a lot of work, and sometimes I'm kind of embarrassed to say that because I feel like, okay, you put in a lot of work. Well, where has that got you? But one thing that I could say that I'm proud of, I think that I focus too much on money. Why do I say that? Is because that's when I start to question that. Because when I start questioning my financial position. But when I look at another form of wealth, which is impact. You know what I mean? Like, as a matter of fact, to this day, I could show you a text message, pull it up right now for your listeners, where somebody said, wow, True, thank you for, you know, how you impact my life, So I'm learning and have to remember that number one, money isn't everything. Social status, not that I'm looking for social status, I'm just adding that one. Social status isn't everything. You have to be clear on what is wealth for you. And I got into this not with money being the first intention. It was to make a difference in my community. And I'm doing that. So I am rich when it comes to that. You get what I'm saying? But now, right, so I can create a bigger impact and also do this without any distractions, right? Working a 9 to 5 and all of that. This is actually more work. People don't even know. A 9 to 5 is easy compared to this type of stuff. I am now figuring the money piece, though. Because money's important. I'm a man. And part of a man's role, a woman's role too, is to provide.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It ain't about being a creator and you ain't taking care of your financial responsibilities either.
Mm-mm.
So it's finding the harmony within all of that. I always say this quote, the two most important days of your life is when you were born and when you discovered why. And I am grateful that I've discovered why.
Man, that's great, man. And
Thank
I can
you.
relate.
Thank you.
I can relate, man. I can.
And you know what? I'm sorry not to cut you. You and I mentioned earlier, and before we even turn the mics on, how this is sort of like a young man sport. And I was even like at one time embarrassed to say like, yeah, at this stage of my life, I'm still doing these things, right? There's a place for us, and I'm gonna tell you why I say that. People now more than ever are looking for seasoned men for wisdom. And you and I, as both of us being in our mid-40s, are that. And not just because of age, but because of our experiences. So even though this may seem like a young man sport, there's a role in positions where we are desired and required to fill. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, we're getting to it.
And I'll add on to that because when we were talking about that on the beach, I was driving. This came to me as I was, I told you I in any case, the topic came up. And I was thinking to myself, you know what, man? Like, whoever's listening to us right now, because I have people who listen. And it may not be millions, but I do have people who listen. I do have people that watch. They're going to grow with us. You get that part?
Absolutely.
Like, they're going to grow with us.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And here's where we go wrong. Where we go wrong is if we don't continue to grow within ourselves. Where we go wrong if we don't continue to travel, we don't continue to grow, because we have to have these experiences to talk about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if we're not doing it, then we're almost silenced in a way. Because it's kind of like, oh, I heard that already. I heard that story already. I heard why he joined the military. I heard about Africa. But what about what comes next? What's the new stuff that comes up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Where do we go with this?
Absolutely.
That's the exciting part. The cool part about it is that we're not young to the point where we're going to make tons of mistakes. I think the mistakes are already made. You'll stumble a little bit, but the core, like, you've already built up the core. You've already built up the foundation. I've been able to do the same. You know what I mean? So we're going off of our past experiences, but we're also like in uncharted waters for us because our podcasts are not, it's not Drink Champs. It's not. Also, we're also in a different space because Nori, Mace, and Cam and these guys, they're working off of a platform, and by due right that they've put in the work. You know what I mean? We've grown up with them. We know who the Diplomats are. We know, Cam's first album. Like, we know this, right? We know this. Sex, Drugs, and Entertainment, right? We know SDE, right? We know this.
Children of the Corn.
We know this, right? So they're working off of something that, rightfully so, they're building off of their past experiences, which is why,
The fruits of their labor.
We are doing the same thing. We're working off of our past experiences. All it takes is one, bro. All it takes is one. You get one to go. Everything you have, all your content, all your interviews, everything comes to the forefront. So it's almost that mindset where, like, you're digging a tunnel and you don't realize how close you are to the other side, and you walk away.
3 feet from gold.
Yeah. Well, I'm not walking away.
That's right.
I'm not walking away. You're not walking away either. We're going to keep digging, dude. We're going to keep digging. We're going to keep pushing forward. I think what is important, though, is that the networking, how we got in contact was through a network, that we continue to do that. Indeed. Right? Because here is, in my opinion, is one of the important parts of podcasting. We're both in New Jersey. I'm in Central, you're North New Jersey, right? North. think about all the folks that you have spoken to, and think about all the folks that I have spoken to. Right? So in a sense, like, we're working together, because you'll go back and look through my content and you'll be like, hey, Mach, can you put me in touch with that yoga instructor? That can you put me in touch with that person? Could you put me in touch with that person? So think about it. Like, I have spoken to and there's a lot of stuff that hasn't even been released. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get that, how we're kind of like using each other's, platform. We're helping each other.
Yeah, and for me, what's so dope about that is coming from the space of like the streets, and I haven't been in the streets since 2006, right? But it's so part of who I am, that sometimes I use reference points. So what's so dope is that a lot of times I saw people on the same block beefing, right? Or even go to war because they pumping the same product, right? And so like you and I, essentially we have the same product, right? Spark.N.Stride, raw success. However, what's not there, number one, is ego. And number two is this, I got to hold everything for myself. No, we're both willing to assist each other. And we're working with people who are willing to assist us as well. Because the truth is, it's a big world out there. And that's one thing that I do appreciate about social media, where it's like, you can find your tribe being yourself. Like, a lot of us are saying the same thing, right? But they're not saying it how Macho would say that. They're not saying it how True would say that. And there's someone out there that will resonate only with how Macho would say it, whether it's because you're ex-military or because you're from Brooklyn, whatever it is, or maybe they had a mother on drugs, right? And so I think that that's what's so dope about the space we're in. And I appreciate you, because you did, when we first met over the phone, so to speak, you opened up that line of generosity. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm grateful for that. And that's one thing about social media that I will say that I appreciate, besides being able to connect with people that you would never have connected with, is also like, it's a big world, and you can organically create a movement or a tribe, you know what I mean? Just by being yourself. You know what I mean? So that's what's dope about it too.
Like, I'm a strong believer in just energy and like just putting out positivity into the universe. Like, it will come back to you, man. It will come back to you.
Yeah. It's a law of the universe.
True. Like, someone could see this podcast. Someone could see this banter between us going back and forth. Maybe there's like another person out there that's like, like, I want to meet with those dudes. I want to share with them what I'm doing. And we don't know who this person is. This person could be in Australia. This person could be in London. I don't know. That's the dude, my algorithm is Australia.
Dope.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
So people in Australia watch Spark.N.Stride.
Shout out to the Aborigines out in Australia.
Please, right? Like, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy that I wear like a Spark.N.Stride hat in the airport and somebody comes up to me. It's like, hey, Spark.N.Stride, that's the podcast, right? Are you the guy from the podcast? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh my God, I listen to you. I watch you.
Bro,
keep going.
I can't wait for that to happen to me. And not for no ego stuff, but to be like, wow, like, the message is getting out that far. That's dope, bro.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's
shout out to Spark.N.Stride again.
Yeah, man, thank you. But listen, brother, you and I could sit here probably for the next
hours, bro.
Right?
We need to do part 2, part 3, part 4.
And it'll come. It'll come.
Indeed.
You're welcome here whenever you want to come here.
And I got 3 more books in my head. So every time I write a book, I'll make sure that you're one of the first podcasts I reach out to.
Before we end, that's what I wanted to ask you. What is your writing process? Because I'm working on a book right now. But what's your writing process?
I'm gonna tell you what my writing process was, because it's gonna look different the next time.
Okay.
Right? So I'll tell you how this book came to be. Because there's some mistakes that I did along the way, just like anything in life, right? You when you know better, you do better. So with this book and specifically, I had to, as a busy man, right? I got a family, I work, I got side hustles, right? All types of things. I would time myself a certain amount, like let's say I'll put the timer on for 15 minutes and then start writing, right? So this book, let me say this first. When I submitted the manuscript to the editor that I worked with at the time, I went through like 4 or 5 editors. That's a whole nother story. But at the time, the book that you see now is not the manuscript. You get what I'm saying? It went through a process of refinement. You know, like for example, when I wrote the manuscript, one of the first questions she asked, she was like, "Yo, what are we doing here? Is this a biography, autobiography? Is this a self-help book? What are we doing?" And so I had to tell her, "Oh, okay, this is a self-help book." So she was like, "Oh, okay." So now we knew, what to take out, what to add, what needed refining, right? But the process was like this. I want to write a book, right? Boom. Okay, what's the book going to be called? I had the title of the book. That I didn't know that, and that made sort of like a way for what's coming. And so I would just, every day make sure whether it's 10 minutes or a half hour. Sometimes I had the luxury of doing an hour, not that much. I would just crack at it and just go in and type the words that were in my mind. I also had some notebooks filled with thoughts as well. I got like a lot of notebooks in the house, man, like written old school with some of my
Composite.
correct with
Yeah.
some intellectual thoughts, feelings, and things of that nature that I also included within the writing process. Without going into boring details, what I do want to say to the people, because a lot of people ask me, "Yo, how'd you write a book? I want to write a book." You got to be intentional with how you invest your time. Everything could get done that you want to do in life. You just have to be intentional and use the resources that you presently have. Whatever it is, whether it's a pen and pad, a keyboard, an old school typewriter, or your little cousin's phone, whatever it is, just use it and use your time wisely. And so that's what I did. And then you got to have patience and don't compare yourself to people. Like your life looks different. That's a mistake that I've did in a lot of the things. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that. I got in the habit. I got in the habit of comparing myself to other people's process or other people's lives, and the thing is, their life isn't mine. You know what I'm saying? I think people have to remember that. So you find it in your life of what works for you. So I would time myself. And then I took a course called Speakers Boot Camp that also included sort of like a course for writers as well. Shout out to Dr. Chike Akua. It was in Atlanta. And so that helped me too, because what that did is sort of gave me like a skeleton of how to write a book. So then I took that, and because I was still writing the book when I took that course. So then what that did was, so when I took that course, I then came up with the titles. And then I started to plug things in. Because all I did at first was just write. You know what I'm saying? Just writing, and so the editor asked me what type of book we're doing. So you got to be clear. What kind of book are you writing? And then the other thing was create the skeleton of the book. I already had the name of the book, so that helped. But like the titles, because the titles would then tell you what to write about. And then you have to be diligent with editors and what type of editors. Let me say this too. A lot of people say, "Well, True, I don't write well." Fam, I went to Eastside High School in Patterson. If you've seen the movie Lean On Me, that's the high school I went to. Number one. Number two, I'm not a good writer either in terms of punctuation and grammar. And the way I speak now, I worked on myself. I purposely extended my vocabulary and worked on my vernacular. And I challenged myself not to curse. These are things that I do to become a better speaker and a better writer. When I would read a book, I would look up the word. If I don't know the definition of it, I look it up. And so don't let that stop you. That's why you have editors. So your purpose is to get the book out. Editors, their purpose is to edit. So allow that person to manifest their purpose. Allow that person to manifest their dream, which is to edit your work. Hire an editor. You can go on Fiverr. That's where I found 2 of them, right? And so I suggest also I haven't met an editor that does it all. they probably exist and I probably can't afford them in this moment. Maybe I could, I don't know. But I had like a editor that worked on the flow of it. I had an editor specifically on punctuation and grammar. And then I had an editor towards the end that sort of just like make sure that the book made sense and put everything together and plugged in all the holes. So even with the book, there's a team work effort. It wasn't true. Like, listen, my wife helps me edit Instagram captions. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm good with coming up with content, but punctuation and grammar, you know what I mean? Like, I need to work on that. You know what I mean? And right now, I don't have the time to work on that. It's just easier for me to get help and focus on what my skill is, which is to come up with the content. And then somebody else could come in and, make it refined.
Sure.
That's what they do. So my writing process is time myself. You know what I mean? First of all, you got to have the material, and the material is in my head. So, and then you just got to time yourself, and then you do have to know when to end, because I could have kept going.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so you do have to have like, okay, this is enough, and then understand that you can write more. You have your whole life. And so I would say, like, in a nutshell, in a simple version, that's my writing process. Now it would look a little different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dope, man.
Thank you.
Dope, bro.
I appreciate you,
Dope,
bro. This
So
was fun,
dope.
man.
Yo.
I enjoyed it, bro.
Oh, man, this was great, dude.
Thank you for the merch, too, man.
All day, man.
I'm definitely going to represent with my Spark.N.Stride hat. You know what I mean?
You got your Spark.N.Stride socks.
Feel me?
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you.
You know, man, I can't thank you enough, man. I can't thank you enough for taking time away from your family.
Thank you.
From your schedule.
Shout out to my wife.
Absolutely. Shout out to your wife. Everything that we're trying to do requires the support of all these people that are intertwined into our, like, the fabric of our lives, right? Our wives, our kids, work, all this stuff. But thank you, man. True. Taking time, coming down here. I don't live close to you. You took time out of your day. You were here early. It allowed us some time to kind of like get to know each other a little bit, because sometimes, folks show up and is right into the podcast. So you're kind of like figuring each other out as you're speaking. So, but I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate you coming to Spark.N.Stride and sharing your ideas, your history, your testimony. And I know that we can go further. I know it, bro. Like, this can go very long.
Mutually.
You know what I mean? So that only allows us the lane that you come back.
That's it.
Right? Like,
and I'm gonna have you on mine.
Oh, all day. And perhaps a regular on Spark.N.Stride. There's so much that we can do.
Yeah, bro. Like, as I told you earlier, and I'm gonna say it online, bro, I almost cried. Like, just the whole experience.
Oh,
you know what I mean? See, y'all just seeing us on the mic. This was a whole package experience, Spark.N.Stride experience, bro. I almost cried. And not only because of what I was experiencing, feeling, and thinking and everything, but also like me knowing a little bit about you, and to know, again, I know I said it a few times, where you come from and what you created. I'm like, wow, man. And then your generosity through you're just such a great host, not only on a podcast, but just like I'm your guest.
Sure.
Your presence, and I felt taken care of. So
thank you,
thank
brother.
you for doing that for another man, because I think as men, we need to do that more for each other.
Sure.
Support each other in that way, create that space where we can be vulnerable in a safe place. I know that I can trust you, even though I don't really know you and met you, right?
Sure.
Yeah, we're not friends, so to speak. We're going to become friends, and we're developing that relationship.
Sure.
But I just know it's solid. I see the three monkeys, you know what I'm saying? Which is like a value of your podcast, which is like, yo, this is a safe space.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But just in general, our conversations and everything, man. So yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
I'm just so glad that like we got the.
That's fun, man. This is fun.
Bro, listen. This was good, True. This was good, and I don't get a chance to do the podcast every day, and what my goal is I want to be able to do this every day. I want to be able to have conversations like ours every day. And you know, there's a little bit of like nervousness when you're first doing it, like for myself, because I'm not doing it every day. So I'm not exercising the muscle every day, if that makes any sense. Pause. Right. So but yeah, so it just it puts the battery back in my back, knowing that, hey, this is Mach, this is you. This is your thing. This is what you like, Spark.N.Stride, you know. So yeah, man, again, thank you, True. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time, coming early, taking time out of your day. Please send my thanks to your wife and your family. Would love to have you back, and I would love to continue to connect and see where it is that we can make more content together, or just go back and forth with ideas and how to, like, how do we go to the next level, right?
It's done.
Like, how do we get that one to go?
We're doing it.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, baby steps, man. So, brother,
Thank you.
All right, you got it.
Peace and power.
Spark.N.Stride.
Yeah.
Spark.
Heavy duty.
It's Mach